Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to SAFC Fan TV. We've got a very different live stream today, going through something we wouldn't normally talk about. But before we do that, first and foremost, we're joined by Deano. Deano, how are you getting on today?
Good, mate. Just came back from five-a-side, good little game. My team got smashed. It was all good, though.
Did you score any own goals this time?
No. Steve Coniston was the king of that today. He scored 2 own goals, funny enough.
He was man of the match apart from that, though. He did a fantastic.
He was a great little player, to be fair.
And we're also joined down south from Jacob Kirkbride. Jacob, how are you getting on?
Doing well, mate. Nice day at work. Sun was nice and shining down south today. So, I've had a pretty positive day, to be fair, compared to some of the previous days I've had at work. So, yeah, all happy days.
There we go. Well, lads,
how are you, Jack?
I'm perfectly fine. Thank you for nobody normally asks me. It's normally Michael's job, actually. He normally says over years, and then he only asks. I'm fine, Dino. Yesterday, of course, it was announced about the plans to form the European Super League. 6 teams in England will be competing in that. It's been announced that'll be competing in that, which is Arsenal, Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, Tottenham, and Chelsea. I believe, was it 12 clubs have been announced so far, and they're looking to add an additional 3 as well. We're going to go through that, get all of our thoughts. First and foremost, lads, I think it's a good place to kick off. They've came to this conclusion that it's going to be these 6 clubs in England. But look at them. Arsenal, 9th in the Premier League, not won a Premier League title since 2004, never won the Champions League. Spurs, haven't won a Premier League title. Man City, have never even got to a Champions League final. Nottingham Forest, have actually won the Champions League twice. Clubs such as PSV and Porto have won the Champions League, but been left out. To me, the audacity of these clubs, thinking that they're so elite that they no longer even have to compete for the spot because there's no relegation in this. How on earth, Dano, have they come to this conclusion that these are the 6 clubs that, from England at the very least, that are going to compete in this competition?
I have no idea. I think it's marketability, innit? Arsenal fans have got loads around the world. I'm not sure about Spurs. I know Spurs made a great stadium and they've got some of the best players. They've got Harry Kane, who's very marketable. But I don't understand how Spurs and Arsenal can be in it. Arsenal haven't been in the Champions League for 3-4 years now. Spurs, they're not really challenging. I don't know why Spurs are in. I have no idea. Turn it up. My dad says we're on mute. But yeah, it's actually kind of pathetic, to be fair. If anyone's should be in it, it should be Leicester. Leicester won the league not long ago, but yeah, Arsenal can be in it, and Spurs. Oh wait, man, behave.
Yeah, my point was that exactly. You got Leicester in there who won the Premier League only a few years ago. That's something Tottenham's never even done. Tottenham have never even won the Premier League. Leicester have. Surely, if Tottenham have got this spot, it's Tottenham for me. That's the main club. I look at them, I go, never won a Champions League. They haven't ever even won the Premier League, and they're getting a spot, Jacob, over the clubs like Leicester. Should this not be decided? Surely, if they even are going to go ahead with this, which I'm sure we can get on, it shouldn't even be going ahead. But if they are even going to get onto this, surely a fairer scoring system that looks at the very least your history in Europe and how you're getting on domestically as well.
Well, I think Dino even touched this on the channel. I think it was a few months back. What your club's done in the past, it's irrelevant now, to be honest. It's all about money and power that, for me, Jack, it's ruining our game completely. You look at, was it Manchester City and Chelsea, for example, before their owners came in Roman Abramovich and the Saudis from the Far East with a bucket load of money, to really change the shape of them football clubs. For what they've done before they came in, now it seems to be all forgotten about because they've got all this supreme money and power to take control and just create all this authority. You look at Roman Abramovich's time at Chelsea, just sacking managers left, right, and centre. But what's going on in football now, it's a disgrace from top to bottom, to be honest. And it looks like we may see if, and I will say if, because I still feel the passion of plenty of fan bases in this country will come together and do its very best to try and stop it. The pyramid will likely change because of this, the whole shape of the English football pyramid. But I fear also for grassroots football, because even though they're deciding to pull away and form their own league we do need clubs like that still being in the top division, because it's all about, I know it's marketability, but at the same time, it's people look forward to playing clubs like that. And I feel at the same time, like, motivation amongst a lot of footballers could drop because of these clubs moving away. I mean, I know they shouldn't be like that, but then again, it's the money and power that is completely destroying our game right now. And we said at the start of the show, was it Tottenham being one of the 6 that are joining this Super League? They've sacked their manager, Jose Mourinho, today. I'm wondering, is there more to that sacking than people think? Could people be looking at, has Jose taken a stand against that and thought, right, I think it's wrong for the good of the game, so I'm walking away? But at the same time, Tottenham would have had to have paid a lot of money to pay out Jose Mourinho's contract. But where are they getting all that money from? And that's probably coming together to be part of this Super League at the same time. But I don't know. Only time will tell me. More's going to come out in the next few days. Still a long way to go, but we need to come together now. Plenty of fan bases up and down the country to try and stop this from happening. It's beyond a joke.
Yeah, and I think that's part of the reason we want to do this, really. Deano, I know you're wanting him. We're going to get onto Jose Mourinho a little bit later, if that's what you were going to mention.
I was just going to say, I've watched a couple of Tottenham YouTube channels, and apparently he refused to take training this morning because he doesn't want anything part of the Super League. I mean, why would you sack a manager when he's getting you to a League Cup final? I know it's just a League Cup, but you probably got more chance with Jose Mourinho at the helm.
When was the last time Tottenham won anything of note? A League Cup? With
2008 League Cup.
With all due respect to Tottenham, League Cup final, it's a decent opportunity to win something.
Yeah, but wouldn't you think, having Jose Mourinho at the helm, you've got more chance of winning it than someone like, say, Ledley King, if he's going to take the match on? I mean, I think it's a statement from Jose Mourinho. Don't get us wrong, I think he was on the verge of getting sacked regardless, but I think that would have been at the end of the season. But be sacked, I'm sure the League Cup finals next week in the this Sunday. I mean, I think that's a really bad move if he has been sacked. But apparently, he refused to take training this morning. Training because he didn't want to be part of the Super League. This is what I've heard.
Yeah, I mean, that's what the story was. Some people have went against it. We can get on to Jose Mourinho a little bit later, but I just wanted to stay on something that you were saying, Jacob, really, and this is the effect overall in England. I mean, a story I remember in particular, I think that was last season when Shrewsbury got round to a round of the FAL League Cup and ended up playing Liverpool. And they actually won a replay because they drew the first game, I think, or they just drew them and they were talking about the first game. But the manager actually said, because of this game against Liverpool, which was, I think it was live on Sky or BT, it was live on the telly, someone had bought the rights for it. But because that they'd done that, Shrewsbury got an income like they'd never seen before. And Shrewsbury's a team in our league, bear in mind, the 3rd division of English football. But this is the impact that the likes of Liverpool can have on other teams. Because of this match, because all the people are going to watch around the world, and someone had bought the viewing rights for it, and Shrewsbury obviously get a cut of that, they'd actually been able to afford something. It was a piece of equipment. I think it was like a TV screen and a setup as well. Something that was they could use before each game to look at the opposition and go through, tactically what they're like. For example, if they're playing against Sunderland, they might look at someone like Aidan McGeady and look how he tends to create chances, things like that. It's the importance these clubs have. Just by being there, they help out other clubs. I mean, even Premier League clubs are going to suffer. The likes of, your Premier League regulars, which a few years ago, you probably stick us in there, but, West Ham, Everton, Wolves, these types of clubs, they get a lot of their income and they rely heavily on the likes of Man United, Man City, Liverpool, etc. for those big games on Sky that everyone wants to watch and that they pay the Sky subscription for. They take a cut of that, and that's how they're going to afford to keep going, and that's how they can afford to keep going as a club. That then comes down to the EFL as well, because then, Championship, League 1, League 2 clubs, they've got that in non-league clubs as well. They've got that incentive to go through in the domestic competitions and hopefully draw a Liverpool or a Man United or a Man City, something along them lines. We're quite lucky, Sunderland, in a sense. Well, not really lucky, to be fair. It's just the size of our club that we've got a fan base. That means that we still have a decent revenue for the 3rd division anyway. But not everyone has that. And the impact that these big clubs have on the rest of the entire system is huge, Jacob. And to lose that, you could see the death of so many clubs.
Yeah, I mean, another club you mentioned there, West Ham, having a fantastic season, even though they're managed by someone who I'm not the best fan of, let's put it that way, for a previous season that he's been in charge of us. But no, credit to them. I think they're currently in 4th place at the moment, and it'll be how their players will react for the remaining games they've got this season. Honestly, it would be heartbreaking being a West Ham player right now to think about what they could be going through and how the rest of the players in their squad will be feeling at this present moment. I'm going to say it's heartbreaking, to be honest. It just takes out that real passion towards, because this time of the season is always my favourite time, when things are decided, things can twist and change. And was it Gary Neville on Sky Sports was talking about these clubs are moving into a competition where there's not even relegation involved, and people love tuning in at this stage of the season to big games down the bottom of leagues as well as games at the top. And yeah, it's disgraceful as well. And grassroots football, we'll come to that later in the show, but that's one thing I'm really passionate about through other media work that I do, and that's going to be really, really battered now with the news that has come out in the last 24 hours. But I still feel that there is a long way to go yet. We're not beaten, but it's almost like a disgust and offence also from the foreign clubs who have agreed to take part in this. Are they disregarding the passion of English fan bases? Did they not honestly believe that there wasn't going to be a backlash to this? I mean, look at the Leeds United fans outside Ellen Road before the game tonight. Obviously, we're not condoning what they're doing tonight because of the dark times we're still living in the roadmap to recovery of the current pandemic. But yeah, of course it was going to cause an uproar amongst fan bases who are not part of this big sick, because there are a lot of passionate fan bases out there, particularly in this country. And just because you may support a football club who hasn't achieved success for a long period of time does not mean that you don't have a passionate fan base. It is disgusting.
Right,
and yeah, it's I don't know, it's really dark times at the moment, but we're not beaten yet. Still a long way to go.
Yeah, you'll have just noticed we are, of course, at the moment being joined by James Copley from the Sunderland Echo. James, how are you getting on, first and foremost?
I'm good, thank you for inviting me on. It's nice to be on.
No, nice to hear your thoughts, mate. I mean, we're just going through the effect this is going to have on other Premier League clubs, other EFL clubs, as far down as non-league. I mean, how important are, these, big 6 clubs? I mean, we say that a lot of them aren't even, 2 of them aren't even inside the top 6 at the moment. Arsenal is as far down as 9th. But how important are these bigger clubs in the Premier League to everyone, really?
It's an interesting question. I don't think anybody's irreplaceable. Obviously, commercially, marketability, they are important to the Premier League. That's why you're seeing Sky mobilise, because Sky have invested billions in the Premier League. That's why they're anti, the European Super League, is because they are important to that brand. But I think these teams can be replaced. To be honest, I think it's a shame when you consider the heritage of the teams and what they stand for. I don't want them to go, but I think English football can survive without it. Not to go all flag waving on you, but English football survived a pandemic recently, and it survived 2 world wars as well. So I think it could survive this in theory. I hope it doesn't get to that stage, to be honest with you. But yeah, it's massively disappointing. That echo Gary Neville's sentiments and some of what's been said earlier on the show is it's scavengers and greed. It's a symptom of where society is at the moment. Football mirrors society, in my opinion. I think sport mirrors society. You see that throughout history, and the money is at the top, and they don't care about the little man. I think society mirrors that at the moment. Billionaires, unfortunately, they don't care about fans. They don't care about fandom. They don't care about, grandfathers and grandmothers and sisters, brothers, uncles, sons, daughters, aunties. They don't care about that heritage. You're seen as a customer now. We'll have a customer number for season tickets and whatnot. It's a sad state of affairs, and yeah, I think this whole debacle just mirrors the way society as a whole has been going, and it's unfortunate.
I'm glad you went down the path of that these clubs aren't irreplaceable, to be honest, because something I've been seeing is, what it is, if you want to leave the pyramid in this country, crack on. Because it is going to have a huge impact on clubs like ourselves, even other Premier League clubs, EFL, non-league, all the way down to grassroots. It is going to have a huge impact, especially in the short term, and a lot of clubs are going to suffer. financially from not having these clubs, especially in the long term, before we can build ourselves back up. But in any way, James, I'm just going to go to you first. Does eradicating, well, not eradicating, but the likes of United, City leaving the pyramid, could it not actually be a decent thing long term overall? Could it not actually in some way make maybe the football period more purer, more fan based? Because a lot of these clubs are starting to become like neutral. A lot of the crowds are neutral fans, tourists.
I think that there is an argument to suggest it could make the playing field more level, because if you take, 6 big clubs out of it, then, or these 6 big clubs out of it, that, you'll have more of a chance of winning something. But to be honest, you spoke about it earlier, Tottenham, they might win the Carabao Cup. They're probably not going to win for the Champions League. Arsenal are an absolute joke. They haven't won a league title for a number of years now. Manchester United haven't won a league title since Fergie, and that was, nearly a decade ago. It's absolutely ridiculous that these clubs think that they're the big 6. Leicester have won the league more recently than Manchester United. It's and if you want to consider history as a whole, Sunderland have won 6 league titles. I think Tottenham have won 2. Newcastle have won more league titles, I think, than Spurs. It's just ridiculous. You don't want to see that history disappear. I want Sunderland to get back into the Premier League, and I want Sunderland to play Man United, and I want to go to Anfield, and I want to go to the Etihad, because it's part of the history and the culture of the British game. But I don't think they're irreplaceable, no. And I think that teams like Leicester could come to the fore, and I don't think that would be a bad thing for the competition of English football. My issue lies with the fact that they've classed themselves as elite when they're not. And I think we need to consider what that word elite actually means. Elite doesn't mean, in today's society, that you're the best at something or you're the best in your field. Elite means that you've got the most money, and I think that's a distinction people need to draw, to be honest.
Well, exactly. We were going through how they came to the conclusion that Arsenal have been elected to compete in this tournament, yet Leicester, who've won the league title more recently, and actually higher than them in the league, how have they not? Spurs haven't even won a Premier League title. It's pathetic. There's other clubs to me in there who've got much more of a right to compete in this tournament, and we've touched on them really. Dino, I know you wanted in just a moment ago.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I've heard that this is just going to be like a different Champions League. Like these clubs still think they're going to be able to play in the Premier League. Like, so they think they're going to play Premier League football still, and then just go to this league midweek. It's going to be a midweek thing. Like it's going to be just a Champions League, but they're not going to be part of it. But they're going to be in it every single year. So there is no. So it doesn't matter if they finish 12th or get relegated to the Championship. They're always going to be in it, and they're always going to reap the rewards of the money. But let's be fair, Arsenal, Tottenham coming up against Real Madrid, Barcelona, they'll be bottom of the league every single time. They can't even compete in the Premier League. So what chance have they got against Barcelona, Juventus, and all these other teams? It's actually ridiculous. I mean, the Premier League should literally deduct them points. Man City shouldn't even win the title this season, in my opinion. They should say, you're not winning the title. See you later. And it just shows that Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund and Porto have said no, and even PSG as strong as them have said no, not happening. We're not going to join the league. And for all 6 English clubs to say, yeah, we'll join, I mean, that just shows like they don't actually care about their own fan bases. Because I know for a fine fact Liverpool fans won't be happy. Imagine Liverpool getting kicked out of the Premier League. No Premier League football for them. They're just going to be playing in this Super League, which will get boring dead quick. Because you're coming up against the same teams every single week. It'll be boring. It's exciting when you see a team from the Championship come up to play, like when Leeds come up and they play Liverpool and it's cracking matches. You're just going to see the same games every week. It's going to be boring.
Yeah, Jacob, Martin.
Yeah, I was going to ask a question to James, actually, since he's our guest tonight. Do you think potentially if this competition goes ahead and these clubs who are being part of the 12 who will be taking part in it, obviously and I will say if, because there is still a long way to go, because fan power can necessarily stop it, could it get to a stage next season where they think, nah, this is not right, and the competition could die after one season? Or do you think the money and power will still be able to keep the competition going?
Yeah, I think money talks in football and in life, to be honest. Where the money is, the power seems to stay. So I think I think that one of the things that you have to consider in this sort of power grab and this fractious split is that these big six clubs, they're talking about legacy fans, so the traditional fan base in England and Britain, they're not thinking in terms of those fans. They're thinking in terms of, the 2 billion people in the continent of India and Asia. They're thinking of, a completely global market, which, massively outstrips any earning potential it can get from like a core British fan base. So if they can tap into that market and enough fans around the world buy into it, then yeah, I think it absolutely could work, because they don't necessarily have, unless they're really invested in it and unless they've massively done the research, and there will be fans around the world who have done the research and do understand the culture of the club. But for a lot of people as well, they'll have their own understanding of their club because they'll have come up a different way, if you get what I'm saying. So their understanding might come from a video game or, something they've read or whatever. They may not have necessarily been brought up in the same culture we have. So if these big six clubs can tap into that global market and get people involved, then I think, yeah, it could definitely work.
Yeah, Deano, I can see you want in there.
Yeah, I want to ask James a question. Do you think this has came about because if you remember a good couple of years ago, they were saying like Premier League games will be played in America. So when teams like Man City and Man United play each other, they won't be playing at home. They'll be playing in America. Then they'll move the next game to Dubai. Do you think that's come about because they know that there's fan bases in other countries because we're lucky enough to have these in our own country? And now they're going to say, right, these games are going to be played around the world because American fans would want to see Barcelona v Man United or Man City in their country. Do you reckon that's why this has came about, because that idea years ago?
I think it's definitely part of it, Dino. I think globalization of any sport opens up new markets, and how much money do people at the top of the game really need? That's a question for another day. But they'll be seeing dollar signs, they'll be seeing pound signs, they'll be seeing. We had, I think a couple of years ago, it was Real Madrid versus Man United in the States, 90,000 people in the stadium, something ridiculous like that. We've seen clubs try to tap into that market in terms of, mid-season friendlies, pre-season friendlies. I think that's 100% definitely a part of it. And I think, with the globalization of the sport, we've sort of tried to have our cake and eat it, if you know what I mean, because we've allowed this money into the game. We've all wanted billionaires to take our club to the next level and whatnot. And it turns out that they're not actually interested in the club or the fans. They're interested in lining their own pockets. And we've allowed that to come into the British game. Sky have allowed it. And with these TV deals, it's been great for the product, and it's been great for the football. Just watching Leeds, Liverpool here, and two good teams, we've reached sort of the apex and, the top level in terms of on the field, but off the field, we're in danger of losing the soul of the game for money as well, which... how much money do these people at the top of the game really need? Let's not forget as well that the people that own these clubs aren't short of a couple of quid. Do you know what I mean? They don't need to do this. They'll have more money than we can ever imagine. Do you know what I mean? They've probably got more. The owner of these 6 football clubs have probably got more than the rest of the people in the world put together. Or the workers certainly. So, yeah, I think you bang on in what you say, Dino, and what you suggest, that they'll have seen the marketability, they'll have seen the globalization, they'll have one eye on America and the franchises over there and how they operate, and they want to pull up the trapdoor from behind them. They want to ensure that they can make as much money as possible without any jeopardy. And it's wrong, it's immoral, it's not what football all over the world is about. For me, it's sick. It really is sick.
It's like them have brought the NFL over here a couple of times, haven't they? They bring the Super Bowl sometimes over here in the odd NFL game at Wembley. I mean, it should be, if it's an American sport, just keep it over there. Simple as that. Stop branching out over here, because, yeah, you get the odd English fan who like the NFL, but it shouldn't be played in our country because it's not our sport, it's their sport. I think it's wrong to start mixing and matching, saying, we'll put Barcelona v Real Madrid in America, because it doesn't work. It doesn't work like that. You're taking it away from the actual fans who actually care.
Yeah,
and this is the thing. This is the thing about globalization as well, is that it can be a force for good, and we can hear about these great sporting stories from all over the world. We can watch other sport and cultures, and it's great. You can see what's going on in football in Argentina. If you like boxing in Mexico, you can see what's going on over there. Your Brazilian football, whatnot. You can get interested in the culture, but what draws you in initially is that fan passion. So football in Britain has been built on fans, has been built on these institutions, has been built on Manchester United versus Liverpool, Sunderland winning 6 league titles, Manchester City coming to the fore. It's been built on a culture, and now they want to take that culture away. So what we've made brilliant, they want to take away, which is it's sickening. It really is.
Yeah, just something I want to ask as well, James. The growth of the Chinese Super League in particular, but other countries as well. I mean, America are starting to grow their league a little bit, but it's the Chinese Super League in particular. I'm going to bring up a certain player now in Oscar, who used to play for Chelsea, and in 2017 transferred from Chelsea to Shanghai. Now, if they can have the pulling power of bringing in players from the Premier League who've actually still got good years left in them, like Oscar did, I think he was only in his 20s or so, he's pretty much in his primary, and even in the late 30s, something's when a player could kick on for another couple of years. If they're leaving to go to these leagues, the likes of Shanghai and what have you, to play in a, let's face it, a very poor standard of football a lot of the time, but earn lots and lots of money, do you think that in any way, potentially, the threat of the growing of the Chinese Super League, which can kind of take these players away from the European leagues due to the money, do you think a part of that maybe plays into it, and that's why they're trying to, it could be maybe just a way to compete a bit more, to stop like losing so many players?
Look, I mean, yeah, I'm not against other leagues being strong. I'm not against other leagues having money. I'm not against, if China want to have a Chinese Super League and build their brand like that. It would be hypocritical for us who all enjoy the Premier League and who all enjoy, the culture of English football to sort of rally against other countries and other leagues who want to do the same. I don't subscribe to that argument, but and to be fair, this will sound hypocritical again because I said how much money do you need, but I don't begrudge Oscar, who's, I don't know his full background, but he's from Brazil, so it's likely that he's from a working class background. Footballers away out of the slums in Brazil. You've seen it with Ronaldinho, Ronaldo. They've got large families to look after. I don't begrudge any player who takes the money and goes and plays somewhere else. That's the game you sort of play it. But there's always the understanding that the game is for the masses and the game is for the fans. And with this plan, that just completely goes out of the window. And as Deano alluded to as well, the cheek of it that they can think that they can just continue as if everything's normal, playing the Premier League, playing the FA Cup, and then just toddle on back to the Premier League after they've played a midweek fixture in the European Super League that nobody's been invited to, and is unethical and immoral because you can't get relegated and promoted out of it. So it just goes against the whole ethos of football. With American sports, it's slightly different because, again, we're talking about culture, the culture of the NBA, the culture of Major League Baseball. They've never had that sort of promotion and relegation, as far as I'm aware anyway. It's always been closed. That's the culture. It's the draft culture. That's how they do it. That's fair enough. But that's not how we do it. That's not how our club should look to do it, because it's two completely different sets of cultures and sporting histories. Not to say that, well, in my opinion, one is better than the other, but not to take anything away from fans of those other leagues. I just don't think that football in this country, given its history, given its, largely working class roots, that it should go that way.
It's cheek, and I think it's arrogance to assume that we are these 6 elite clubs. We can go into this little Super League that we're going to form, and no one can relegate us. If you finish bottom of that every year for 5 years, you don't even get relegated. I think it's that arrogance of we're the bigger clubs, and it comes in with the teams that have been elected to play. And we've touched on Arsenal. They're currently 9th in the Premier League. They haven't won the Premier League since 2004. I don't think they've ever actually won a Champions League in the history. No. And they've got the cheek to say, just use that word cheek. They've got that cheek and arrogance to say, we are good enough to be elected for this elite league. Like you said, Deano, they're probably going to finish bottom every year. And there should be a process in place that says, if you finish bottom of this, if you finish in a relegation spot, a team like Leicester or like West Ham, if you're going to go through with the idea of this Super League, could come through and replace you. But Jacob, I know you want in there, couple minutes ago.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually going to ask James, do you also think with the fact that the next World Cup is in a place like Qatar, that's just the prime example of like football federations not caring about the fans now as well, and the fact that it's going to be, I still think, even though you look at the facilities over there, it's absolutely superb. I mean, even with the news the last 24 hours that international football could be affected by this, with bans being put in place for players who take part in this new competition, they could be banned from playing for their country. I think is a disgrace as well, because there is a lot of hopes and dreams of a lot of talented young players that will be shattered. But having the World Cup in a place like Qatar, it's just the perfect example of federations just not caring about what the fans would want anymore. That's how I feel.
100%. Football's been for sale for a long time, and football fans have been trying to get a fairer deal for a long time with the 20s plenties campaign. Corporations, big corporations that own football clubs haven't been listened to us, sadly. And this seems to be the breaking point, and I hope that now we can sort of push back the frontiers a little bit, and hopefully, this is the straw that breaks the camel's back. It's a catalyst for real change, because for me, I don't want to just, I don't want to just knock back the European Super League. I want things to go a little bit further. I want initiatives to be more fan-led. I want that they have a 10% rule or whatever they have in Germany, where fans own 10% of the club. I want more supporters' trusts. I want more fan involvement. I think it's essential. I'm absolutely delighted that the Red and White Army are going into a supporters' trust at Sunderland, and what that means. I think that's exciting, because you need fan involvement at clubs to keep this sort of thing from happening. It's essential.
I mean, fans are at the heart of football, and I think in a way, I'm saying let them crack on, because a lot of these top 6 clubs, if they want to walk out on the pyramid, let them do it. And I think it comes down to that. A lot of their clubs have been tarnished by this tourist group that are now watching their games. You go to Liverpool, how many genuine Scousers are there? And it's just in no way disrespectful to any, I don't mean any disrespect to any of the top 6 club fans. I know there's a lot of genuine Man City fans, genuine Liverpool fans, die-hard Man United fans, lifelong Chelsea fans. But you go to these stadiums and a lot of them are just soulless balls. There's no atmosphere there. And I think football, I mean, it's such a cliche thing to say. I think it was Matt Busby that said it, but football without fans is nothing. And that it's just how it is. It's just true. And these clubs that are leaving the Premier League, are they even? I mean, yeah, they are going to be a huge miss in a lot of respects. But I think the game can maybe get centered around fans more should these clubs leave. But Jacob, I know you wanting in again there.
I was just going to say, I mean, potentially, what could Kirill Louis Dreyfus be thinking about this whole announcement in the past 24 hours? I mean, what do you think his stance will be on it personally? I mean, I'm going to ask James this question, actually, because obviously I know the guy's just come in. Yeah, of course. The guy's just come in as our owner. We do know he has got money behind him with connections, but at the same time, it is the money that is sort of killing the game. And I mean, I know that a club like ours needs money to go back in the direction we all want to see it go, but at the same time, is too much money, will that just cause unfairness in the game as well? I mean, obviously we've tried to imply that with financial fair play. I know we're miles away from that, but at the same time, the pyramid's going to change, so that surely has got to come into question.
For me, with Louis Dreyfus, I don't know him, never spoken to him or anything like that. I don't have a relationship with him. But he's got a few quid. But from everything I've read on him, all the interviews and whatnot, everything we know about his appointments at Sunderland, and he sees this as a meritocracy. Yeah, he's invested money, but he's invested money sensibly in infrastructure. He clearly wants to do it the right way. He clearly wants to be part of the club. My instinct tells me that he probably wouldn't back Sunderland in a Super League if they're in a position to. Say if we were, if he got us to a position of top 4 in the Premier League, that's a long way off. By the way, that I don't think he would sell the soul of Sunderland. That's my sort of gut instinct on the matter. He seems to want to do it. He seems to want to do it more sensibly. I think he's somebody who's been brought up in a very wealthy family, but with a football background as well. His dad with Marseille and whatnot. So yeah, as I say, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but my gut feeling is that he wouldn't support something like this.
Dino?
Yeah, I've got 2 things. Obviously, Jacob mentioned the whole fact that one of the punishments will be that players won't be able to play for the national team, which I think is really, really unfair. I mean, it's not the players' fault. The clubs have decided to do this. And the players, some players can come out and say, we do not want to play in the Super League. But at the end of the day, they're contracted by these clubs. And if them go to the Super League, and they're going to have to play because, like you say, they're contracted, they're earning the money. and to say you can't play for your national team, that means the World Cup in Qatar is going to be a catastrophe. If that's the case, because when will that punishment start? Because apparently the league's going to start either next season or the season after, I believe. So to take away a player's dream of playing for his country because it's not his fault at the end of the day, it's his club's fault. And say, for example, Harry Kane says, well, I want to leave. I want to play for my country. I want to leave. But what if no one wants to buy him? Because the teams who would buy him are in the Super League already. Because Real Madrid would want him. Man City. Do you know what I mean? So, like, what other team could actually buy him apart from them? Exactly.
One thing I will say, Deano, you mentioned the Qatar World Cup a couple of times, and UEFA and FIFA, they've paved the way, in my opinion, for this European Super League to happen. They're dead against it because they're potentially losing assets, but they've been messing around with football for ages. Fair enough, they've wanted to take it into new markets, but Qatar with the questionable human rights records and whatnot, and the stance on gay people, they're taking the World Cup there. Why? What's happened? We've seen, and I don't want to get sued, but there's been massive legal cases of corruption. There's been people sent down for corruption at UEFA and FIFA, people actually serving jail time. In my opinion, they've paved the way for this sort of thing to happen. They're all very annoyed at the moment, but I think hopefully once this European Super League thing's put to bed, we need to look at all areas of football governance, because otherwise we're just going to get this problem again.
Thing is, though, in every walk of life, there's corruption everywhere. I mean, we've seen the Premier League was corrupt with the whole Newcastle thing. I mean that was a big balls up as well, wasn't it? I mean, that was definitely corruption. I mean, when the Saudis came in to try and buy Newcastle, and apparently the Premier League went, oh, we didn't even know about it. I mean, that's kind of corruption in its own way, because if you allow the Saudis to come in for Newcastle, then become probably part of that big six, and I think that would have challenged Man City and the Man United with the money them would have had, and I think the Saudis must have had a word, like the Man City owners must have had a word with the Premier League saying we don't want this to happen because them can overtake us. Like, there's corruption everywhere. There's always corruption.
There's no question that the Newcastle Saudi Arabia thing, there was a sort of a geopolitical Cold War at the heart of it. Obviously, we don't know the full details, but it just goes to emphasize the point that we've been selling off parts of the game for so long that we really shouldn't be surprised that this has happened. It shouldn't come as a shock. It's annoying, and it's made us all angry. But and just because they know that there's corruption in every sort of walk of life doesn't mean that we have to sort of stand for it. We should call it out. We should take action against it. I think we should all be a world of Gary Nevilles. I think we should take a stand against it.
And my other question was, I don't think people will understand that this will affect Sunderland, because, say, for example, because if it's going to happen next season, the Premier League are going to have to make a decision. Do we kick these teams out now or let them have the other say? If they kick them out now, that means either the teams who are going to get relegated this season don't get relegated, and then the next three below them come up. I think that's right, isn't it? So, you'd have to restructure every single league. So apparently that could mean Sunderland could potentially go up automatically, maybe. I don't understand. It might be right, it might not be right. But that would be very undeserved, because for me, you've got to deserve to go up. And if we're in the playoffs now, and then all of a sudden they say, right, you are going up. It was like the whole Wickham thing last season, points per game. Them didn't deserve to go up because they weren't even in the playoffs, and the points per game system allowed them to go up. And as much as I hated Wickham for that, I'd now say it wasn't Wickham's fault, because them had no choice but to play. But the way the players went on, I thought the players should have really had a bit more respect and say, look, lads, we shouldn't really be in this position at the time. So if we did go up, I would actually hate the fact we went up by this way, because it would feel so undeserved.
Yeah, I mean, it's the Super League system to a T, though, isn't it, in terms of not deserving? I mean, we wouldn't deserve to go up. If we finished sixth, but we ended up getting promoted to the Championship because these other six clubs are about to be kicked out the pyramid, we wouldn't deserve it. But it's the same with the Super League, where you could finish bottom of the Super League for 10 years, but as long as you're Arsenal or Tottenham or Man City, doesn't matter. It's the entire system of corruption of, you've got this spot because we've certified you to be a big club.
Don't get me wrong, I'm thoroughly sick of League One after 3 seasons. I'm sure you all are as well. But I 100% agree with Deano. I wouldn't. It wouldn't sit well with me going up like that. I wouldn't complain about watching Championship football, because I am sick of League One. But yeah, I was interested to hear your thoughts on that, to be honest, coming onto the show tonight, because it's sort of mixed, isn't it? Because you want out of League One as quickly as possible. You don't want out like that. it's just not right in the way. It's everything. It's everything that we're criticising the Super League for, really, isn't it? You want to go up as, you know,
Deserved.
Because you've been to Wembley or because you've got enough points. It's it would leave a sour taste in the mouth. And you know, you would question your sort of right to be in the Championship if it happened that way, wouldn't you?
And if we were to then kick on and get back to the Premier League very quickly, other teams would as well, but we'd point the finger at ourselves and go, we don't even deserve to be here, because you have to do it right. And who are we to criticise the likes of the Super League for putting these teams, you know, don't even deserve to be in? Because looking at it, there's teams who deserve to be in the Super League far more than some of the ones who they've selected. Who are we to criticise them if we then benefited from ourselves? But Jacob, I know you want in.
Yeah, I mean, I still stand by, like, you just know at the end of the season if your side deserves to go up. I mean, I know fans of clubs who have gone up through the playoff system and have thought, did we really deserve it based on the form at the back end of the season that we had and even through our performances? But they would still take it at the same time because of the financial rewards that are in the game today. And I still feel, even though I don't condone, like, if we went up, even if it was through the system that Deano mentioned there, if they decide to completely change the football pyramid, the financial rewards potentially for a club like ours, because obviously we've got a new owner that's come in through the door, it could be huge, because you're not going to get the right financial structure in place when you're a club that is playing in League One. Even though we'd want that to change, it's simply not going to be the case. You can't go in that next direction in terms of the financial rewards that you seek when you're still stuck in League One. You need to, doesn't matter how you do it necessarily, it's all about just getting up the leagues and not necessarily doing it the best way, but as long as you are winning those promotions and going in the right direction and just taking one step at a time. I mean, I'll ask you guys about what I've just said there.
Sorry, what was it, Jacob? I was just.
I know, yeah.
No. It's about just. I mean, if the season was to end as it is now, with the places that and the Super League gets announced, do we feel purely deep down that we deserve promotion? I mean, no. Deano said no, completely.
No, for me, if we see in the playoffs now and we won the playoffs, that's deserved, because you've got to be consistent through 3 games, home and away, and then the final. But if we say we're in 3rd place now, and then they say, right, 1, 2, and 3 go up automatically, and then the rest of you play for a playoff, that wouldn't sit right with me, because 3rd place isn't automatic. Top 2 is. It's not 1, 2, and 3. It's the top 2. So that wouldn't sit well with me. It wouldn't. And as much as I give Wickham a load of stick, I mean, I'd feel a bit of a hypocrite if I went, yes, get in, we went up because of Super League. I'd feel like a hypocrite because of the stick I give Wickham for what happened last season with them.
It'll be bittersweet. It'll be like a relief, thank God we've got promoted from this league. But equally, we've not done it in the right way. But James, I know you need to be aware relatively soon. A question I've got for you. So the chairman, of course, and the vice chairman have been announced for this Super League. But it seems, well, it is. I think it's the owner of Real Madrid, I believe, is the chairman. But the vice chairman,
is that Perez?
Yeah. But the vice chairman of this league include the likes of one of the Glazers, who of course owns Man United. But how on earth, James, can they run this league properly and fairly and objectively in a non-biased way when the chairman and vice chairman of the league have got an invested interest in their teams competing in the competition?
Yeah, well, short answer is they won't be able to, and I think what you're seeing is that these big 6 clubs don't like the way in which the Premier League is run in terms of one club, one vote. So Crystal Palace have as much say as Manchester United, Leeds have as much say as Chelsea, Manchester City have as much say as Newcastle United. I don't think they like that. I don't think they like that democracy. As I said before, I think they want to have the cake and eat it. I think they want to control the power. They want a bigger slice of the TV deal, of the TV rights. They want to control how much they get. They want to be at the negotiating table. And yeah, what Gary Neville said on Sky Sports tonight was spot on. You never see Joe Glazer come out and say anything ever. So the fact that he's put his name to that and he's actually released a statement, which is like, it's pretty much unprecedented, really, in his time at United and his family's time at United. It's serious. These men who own these football clubs, these big companies with a lot of money, they're not used to hearing the word no, and I don't think our opinions will really will really bother them too much. But that's vital. That's why it's important that shows like this happen. That Gary Neville speaks out, Jamie Carragher speaks out, that Jurgen Klopp spoke out earlier to a degree. It's important that football's united about this, regardless of which team we support. I think it's really, really important that, I mean, you know, you see the protests at Leeds tonight. You want everybody to be COVID safe and whatnot, but journalists, ex-players, you know, fan TVs, everybody needs to be united on this issue, because the stakes, let's face it, are extremely high, because we could lose a massive part of our game, even though I do think it would be possible to survive without it. But you could be seeing the end of English football as we know it, which would be a shame.
Yeah, Deano, I know you got one last question then, James.
Yeah, one question. If it sounds like a good one in my head, but it might sound crap, but I'll go for it anyway.
That's my whole life, that day.
So do you think, right, I think, I don't know your state affairs on this. Do you think Sky, BT, and any other like TV networks should refuse to broadcast this Super League? And do you think if they did, it would chuck a massive spanner in the works for that league? Because how can you get viewers? You might have to go abroad for it, but we don't want to view what you're doing, because we want to view the Premier League, the Champions League, and the lower leagues, and the AFL and all that. We don't want to be involved in your Super League. So do you think Sky and BT will say, we're not going to broadcast you, we're not going to give you any money whatsoever? Do you think that would chuck a massive spanner in the works for that Super League?
I think it could put a massive spanner in the works in terms of Britain, where football's the number one sport, and you have Sky Sports and BT is the two main proprietors of those sport, along with little bits and pieces from BBC. But again, to go back to my earlier point, I think they're looking at this on a global scale. So they'll be looking at this in India and Asia and America. You see in boxing, the rise of DAZN and Eddie Hearn starting to take that worldwide subscription viewing. You know, people are moving away from TVs now. They're moving on to laptops and iPads, and the world's going sort of the Netflix subscription model. That's the way things are going. I wouldn't be surprised if they've got something like that in the back of their mind. They want more control over the TV rights. They want more control over the product. So I think it would throw a spanner in the works in terms of the British market. But in terms of the global market, I think they're going after a bigger piece of the pie globally than so Britain, although it's a football hotbed, if they can capitalise and mobilise and maximise support from, you know, subscribers, customers, fans around the world, I don't think it would bother them too much. But I think this is the reason why you're seeing Sky and BT put up so much of a fight and being so anti-Super League, is because the product they've invested a hell of a lot of money in, and is probably essential to their business model in terms of people signing up for Sky Sports. Because, you know, I love boxing, but you don't sign up for Sky Sports for the boxing, you sign up for Sky Sports for the football, don't you? That's the main unique selling point. So I think that's why you're seeing them put up such a fight, is because they're terrified that they've invested so much money. And you could see the glamorous ties, the Man United versus Liverpool, the Man United versus Man City, Man United Arsenal historically is a big game, Tottenham Arsenal. You could see all that leaving. So that's a massive part of the marketability of the Premier League. Obviously, we know other things could come to the fore. You could have, you know, Aston Villa, Birmingham, or Newcastle, Sunderland. These games could be just as big, in my opinion, given the right parameters, given the right time to grow. You know, and even now, these are big games. Never mind if they had something on the line, like a Champions League qualification spot, or, you know, a Premier League on the line. Sunderland, Newcastle could be huge if Sunderland ever got back to the Premier League, or an Aston Villa, Birmingham could potentially be huge, or if the Sheffield clubs are in the top division. So I think that it could definitely. There are fixtures and teams that could definitely step into that gap and that chasm that would be left by these teams leaving. But on the other hand, the marketing executives and the big wigs at Sky, they'll be shitting themselves, pardon me French, because, you know, so much of what's marketed about the Premier League will be leaving.
Yeah. James, thanks ever so much for coming on. You've been a great guest. Thanks for coming on.
Nice one, season a bit. Take care.
Cheers, mate.
Thanks, James.
Yeah.
Cheers, James.
Just on what he was saying there, in terms of how should Sky and BT treat this? I think morally, Sky and BT, especially Sky, who a lot of their pundits and faces of, you know, they've nailed the colours to the mast on how they feel about this. You know, Gary Neville, Micah Richards, Roy Keane, etc. I think on a moral level, they should have absolutely no involvement in it, not buy the rights, because that only feeds into the problem that we keep saying exists, which we know exists. But I don't know how much of an impact it's actually going to have. I mean, I think someone, Easton there on the chat has just said Amazon being rumoured. I think if it's not Sky and BT, it'd be someone else. I think he nailed it on with, nailed his point really, saying it's not necessarily the English market they're targeting, it's the global market. It's people around the world who don't care what a Sunderland is, who don't know who Shrewsbury Town are, who don't know who Accrington Stanley are, any of these clubs. They're only interested in the Premier League, specifically a lot of the time the big six, because they follow Man United or Chelsea or Liverpool or Tottenham or whoever it is. They like to follow these bigger clubs. And that's where the money's going to be made here, because instead of Man United turning up to play West Brom or Wolves, which these people from around the world might not have much of an interest in, they're going to be playing clubs along the lines. I was going to say PSG or Bayern Munich, but of course they're two of the clubs who actually thankfully turned it down. You know, they're going to be playing against the likes of Liverpool every week or Real Madrid. So it's the audience worldwide that this is affecting. And to be honest with you, I think you know, if a lot of English people, a lot of European people don't end up watching this, I don't actually think it's going to have the desired effect. Moving on just slightly, lads, of course, we talked about Mourinho earlier. The story is as follows: that apparently he went into training today and said he wouldn't take the players out on the pitch due to the club's involvement in the Super League. A lot of people have also denied that, some journalists, some newspapers. But what do I think, Jacob? What's happened there?
Well, I still stand by. I think there's more to the sacking than people think, because like they've got a fight. Dino was saying this, they've got a cup final on Sunday. Yeah, I know results have not been going great for them recently, but I must, the timing of the sacking, I think, is horrendous, to be honest. And I think there's definitely more to. I think Jose Mourinho potentially could be one of those guys where you think, you know what, I'm disgusted that my club's agreed to take part in this competition that's just going to cause uproar across English fans in our country, where the passion is so great amongst football supporters. And Jose Mourinho has been part of that for a long time, because he hasn't managed anywhere most in England. He's managed most in England amongst anywhere else he's been in his career. He's been at Tottenham, Man United, and also Chelsea as well. So he would understand that a little bit more. And I feel, yeah, that could have potentially contributed to the sacking. But at the same time, it is a puzzling one, to be honest. It is a very puzzling one, Jack.
Yeah, Dano, your thoughts on the whole Jose Mourinho debacle?
It's, yeah, like you say, results were really going their way, but to sack him before a cup final is madness, in my opinion. This is a bloke who's won things every single time. I mean, he's been in how many finals? And I think he said he's never lost one final, I believe. I mean, this is a bloke, yeah, it's up against Man City, but Tottenham have beat Man City this season. I'm positive in that. And I mean, it's a chance to get Tottenham the first bit of silverware for how many years? And they've sacked him. If anything, they've just shot themselves in the foot, for the simple fact that who's going to take in charge? You're going to give Leddy King the job, someone with no managerial experience, and let him take the job.
I think who took train today was that Mason, who actually had to end his
Ryan
career.
Mason. Aye.
Yeah.
So my Ryan Mason's taking it. Someone who's recently just become a coach, because he obviously had to retire because of a head injury, I believe. It was a bad head injury. He's got no experience. He's got no experience. How can a bloke with no experience take Tottenham to a cup final? I mean, and win the cup final against Man City, against one of the best managers in the world and with some of the best players in the world? I mean, you're better with Jose Mourinho at the helm than someone like Ryan Mason. I
mean, but there's no doubt that I think Tottenham fans will 100% get behind someone like Ledley King. I mean, he's a club legend for them. I mean, a lot of Tottenham fans have been complaining about the style of football, but at the same time, when you've got someone like Jose Mourinho, it doesn't matter how well you're playing. It's about getting over the finishing line with silverware. And have they given him a fair chance to do that, sacking him a few days before a cup final? No, in my opinion. But yeah, it's the timing of it's very strange, particularly with the Super League being announced the night before. It's just, yeah, it's one of the strangest decisions I've seen personally. But it was coming. I feel even if it wasn't going to be now, it was going to be sooner rather than later.
with the whole Super League thing, doesn't it just show when you've got teams like Porto, you think Porto would snap your hands off, wouldn't you? They're in a league where it's just them and Benfica. It's 12 teams. They're always in the Champions League regardless. They win the league most of the time. And them have even turned it down because they understand it's for the fans. It's like, if you think about it, Rangers and Celtic have got more right to be in the picking Super League than picking Tottenham and Arsenal. Let's have it outright. And they haven't been asked. It's actually ridiculous. It really is. And I'm glad teams like PSG, Bayern Munich, and them lot have said no. And I hope, because apparently there's going to be 20 teams in this, so they're clearly asking other teams to be in it. I hope them all say no, and it'll knock them up badly, because if you need 20 teams and every other team saying no, it just shows that it's just the money greedy bastards who want it.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to note is, obviously, I still feel that Daniel Levy is Tottenham's owner. He's potentially had on the back of his mind sacking Mourinho for the last few weeks now, but there's no doubt Mourinho would be one of the highest paid managers in the world, and they'd need a lot of money to do that. But they're in the process, Spurs, of, they're still paying off their new stadium. There's still a lot of, even with bringing in players last summer, I think they were restricted on their transfer budget. Being in this Super League, they'll be thinking, with the money that we'll be able to get being part of it, that will cover the cost of getting rid of a manager like Jose Mourinho, to be honest. So I think for them, they've looked at it and thought it's a decent deal, but to do it a few days before a final, it's awful timing. But then again, it could change a reaction. I mean, we don't know what the players have been thinking there the last few days. They could go and get the job done against Man City on Sunday. Who knows?
Yeah, there's so many different things going into this, isn't there, really? But I mean, on PSG, Bayern Munich and Borussia Dortmund turning them down. I mean, Bayern Munich, not one of, if not the most successful team in European football history.
They're elite. They're an elite club. Elite.
To me, if you're going to go through with this and you're deciding which clubs get to be in this, they get in without question. Not the likes of Tottenham. And they're actually turning it down. I really hope it backfires. I really hope this entire thing goes ahead and it just completely backfires. Because, let's be fair, a European Super League isn't really a European Super League without PSG and Bayern Munich at the very least. You then chuck the likes of Dortmund and other teams in there as well. But yeah, definitely 100%. They are the elite clubs, not Tottenham Hotspur, not them. Jacob, I know you want in.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we haven't touched on tonight is the effects of grassroots football. I mean, on Friday night, I was doing media coverage for a team who are playing in the Essex Senior League, and they've been unable to play at a home venue for ages. They've been just like going through different non-league venues to play their home fixtures, and it's offence to the game. And you look at the money and power now, where these teams were potentially with the European Super League could, if the competition goes ahead over time, different venues could potentially host it. It's just like, oh yeah, well, that's all to do with the money and power you're getting, even though you've got a terrific fan base. But yeah, it's just like clubs will go bust, because a lot of non-league clubs, particularly down south in London, they're going bust because of this, and it's up and down the country as well, because financially being ripped. You look at Bury, for example, and yeah, clubs now, because of the pandemic and the financial battering it's had further down the pyramid, unable to play, fulfill their fixtures, unable to fill out team sheets. Yeah, it's causing offence to the game, and I'm sick of it.
Yeah, Deano, I can see you wanting in once more.
I really hope it does backfire, right? So say the Super League happens, they leave the Premier League, and then it goes all tits up because they can't afford to pay them because it's just something happened, a deal didn't happen or whatever, right? And then they come crawling back saying, oh, we want to come back. I hope they get demoted to the National League. I really do.
That's the case. It's going to be the fifth tier of whatever football pyramid they're coming back to, which will be the National League in our case.
Yeah, and I hope every single one of them have to go down to the LM leagues. They'll be in so much. They won't be able to afford to play. They'll have to sell all the best players, and they'll have to start from the beginning. And I really hope that happens, because them teams are just thinking all about the money, and it's just disgusting. It's so disgusting to think that you'd want to leave the best league in the world to go and play in this Super League where you can't get relegated, and you're only fighting for first place, really, aren't you? You're only fighting for first place because you can't have a League Cup or an FA Cup, because There's only one league. So it doesn't matter where you finish. It's like, where's the competition? So say halfway through the season you're on the bottom two. You've got nothing to play for. You're just playing for the sake of playing. You're not fighting against relegation. You're not fighting to get mid-table or Champions League places, Europa League places. You're not fighting for everything. You're just playing just for the money. Like, I mean, how's that fun? How's that competitive? It'll be boring. It'll be crap.
Well, that was my point. This entire thing is for neutral fans. Like, I put on my Instagram story today saying, like, they can do what they want. I would rather go to Accrington and Stanley away than watch this European Super League anyway, because I've got no interest in watching this European Super League because I don't really care. I just like watching Sunderland. I mean, I was saying earlier as well, like, I was, a season ticket at Sunderland, watching the games week in, week out when Jermaine Defoe was playing. I'm still here when Aidan O'Brien's leading the line. You know what I mean? And it's one of them where we go to football, we care about football because it's our team. And I think a lot of people aren't going to be interested in watching this European Super League. Well, I know I won't be. I won't be interested in watching it because I don't watch the Champions League. I don't watch the Premier League because it doesn't interest us. And I'm hoping that's the way it'll go. I think the only real problem is that it's worldwide. But then again, it's going to be boring. And do you know who I feel sorry for in all of this, lads? I feel sorry for the genuine fans of the clubs involved. Can you imagine being like a genuine Man City fan? And that now, instead of your usual home games definitely always being played in Manchester and having the away ticket caps, I think it's 30 quid in the Premier League, an away ticket can be maximum, and, within your country. Can you imagine your away games now mostly being abroad? You would want to stay in the Premier League. So I feel sorry for them because their experience of following the club is going to be severely limited. The likes of Liverpool, they've got a lot of hardcore fans. Man United have, Chelsea, Tottenham, they all do, and I feel sorry for them above anything else. But yeah, Jacob.
Well, you mentioned Man City there. I can guarantee you can go across their fan base and ask them what a lot of particularly passionate Man City supporters, what times would you prefer to be in being a Man City fan before the money came in with the Far East ownership, or where you are now? And I can guarantee a lot of them will say back to where it was unpredictable at the times where Man City were a mid-table side in the Premier League. I know they've got all these superstars now, but that's the thing. A lot of people don't realise that they would prefer to be back to the days where people like ripped them off for a lot of things, even when going back to the days when Man City were playing in the third tier of English football, and then they worked their way up the pyramid after suffering back-to-back relegations. But those fans now, that like it's hard to see them potentially coming back, and they'll just be like offended by what's going on, to be honest, and they'll just want away.
But you know what the mad thing is? I've not heard one fan say this is a good idea. I've not heard anyone say,
exactly.
I can't wait for this. I've not heard anybody.
Because it's not targeted towards the fans of the clubs, it's targeted towards the neutrals worldwide. That's who the target audience is. The actual fans of the clubs are disgusted by it because it's bad for them. It's bad for the fans, and that's what football is built on. But
if that's the case, Liverpool won't be Liverpool anymore because they've got no Liverpool fans there. They're just neutral.
Was it John McGinn who tweeted out saying, call them by the Pro Evolution soccer names and refer to them as Merseyside Red? I thought that was class. But yeah, Jacob, that's the beauty of the English system in particular, but European football system in particular. It's not like America where they don't have relegations and promotions. If you're a small town and a non-league club that's based in a small town and you do everything right, you can win the Champions League one day, you can win the treble. I mean, look at Leicester City, for example, winning the Premier League, then getting the right to play in the Champions League. That's how football and sport should work. Not, or you are a big club, so we've decided that you've been elected to play in this tournament. No. If you're not good enough, you should get relegated. Arsenal, 9th in the team at the moment. They probably won't finish in a top 6 position. I'd be surprised if they do. Therefore, they shouldn't be playing European football unless they win a domestic. I don't really keep up with the Premier League, as I've already said. If it's not Sunderland, I don't really care. But that's the beauty of the English system, of the English footballing system. Look at West Ham. You touched it earlier, Jacob. They're pushing for a Champions League spot. I think they're 4th in the league now. They should have the right to play in the Champions League next season if they finish in the top 4 because they've earned the right to be there, not because they're called West Ham. Do you know? It's just it's competition. That's what sport should be. That's what makes sport great. And I don't think in America, I don't actually think they have like relegation and things like that.
It's playoffs. Yeah, it's playoffs. Playoffs. There's no relegation. There's just the playoffs, and then the win. The win like I don't understand. I think it's like because they have like a North Division and a South Division, and then the playoffs. And then I think they play together. It's like that's. But all these owners of clubs aren't they all American as well? Mainly, apart from obviously Roman Abramovich.
A lot of them are foreign, but a lot of them are American as well. But I think it just proves that this entire idea is American based, because it's bringing that same system of we've got no relegation in place over to this country. And what makes football in this country great is the fact that it's competitive. And if you aren't good enough, you get relegated. If you are good enough, you can go all the way. South Shields could win the treble one day if they went that far, if they did everything right, and if they had a bit of luck behind them, they've got a town following them, they have right investment, they do everything well, they could go on and do that one day. But what they're trying to do, they're trying to change the entire system of English football, where we just decide who gets to play in the top levels. But Jacob, I could see you wanting in there before.
No, continue, Jack. Honestly, you're putting in a lot of passionate comments there.
No, it's fine. I was rounding off my point there if you wanted back in.
No, it's fine. Keep going. Honestly, it's brilliant.
Well, I mean, lads, I want to move on a little bit now. Hopefully, we'll wrap things up relatively soon. Hopefully, we're not live for too much longer. The England situation, we've mentioned it earlier, but of course, it's been announced that if you play in the Super League, you aren't allowed to play for your country. You aren't allowed to play for England. Now, I think we mentioned it as well. That's very unfair. The likes of Jordan Henderson, for example, they're on a contract, and if they can't get a move in the summer, which they might not be able to, then they're going to have to play in this because they've got a contract to honour. And Deano, I think you mentioned it earlier, but it's very unfair on them, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, some player like playing for your country is a big, massive honour. Playing at World Cups, a big stage. I mean, it comes on once every 4 years. Euros once every 2 years, I believe. And to say, "Oh, you can't play it because you're in the Super League," but it's not their fault. Their teams decided they want to be in it. So imagine a World Cup and Euros without the likes of Harry Kane, Hazard, Thibaut Courtois, like all these world-class players who play for these teams can't play in the World Cup because their team decided, we prioritize money over anything else. And the fact is, if Harry Kane wants to move, he can't move to a team outside of the Super League because all the teams who can afford him are in that Super League. I mean, Leicester couldn't afford him. No one could afford him apart from the likes of Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man City. Maybe PSG could afford him. That's probably the only move what he could do. And say, for example, they're not in the Premier League, because Harry Kane's going for Alan Shearer's record of 260 goals. They've just chucked that out the window for him because he can't play in the Premier League anymore if he's in the Super League. So they've just ruined that chance for him. It's shocking.
I think was it Sergio Aguero? I'm pretty sure he came out, even though he's leaving Man City at the end of the season, he was open to joining another Premier League club so he could keep up with the goal scoring records and potentially move even further up, and that's been taken away from him as well. But another point I was going to make, this is based on the last England squad that Gareth Southgate picked. Amongst that current squad of players, there's only 10 that would potentially get back into the England squad in the summer if they're picked and if this competition goes ahead. And was it what UEFA's saying, if you take part, then it's bye-bye to the national team. I mean, looking at the names on there, Ollie Watkins, Dominic Calvert-Lewin, James Ward-Prowse, Declan Rice, Calvin Phillips, Jude Bellingham, which he's at Borussia Dortmund, isn't he? So fair play to Borussia Dortmund for deciding not to take part in it. Tyrone Mings, Connor Cody, Nick Pope and Sam Johnston, who's the West Brom keeper. I mean, that's not a lot.
You've got Jadon Sancho there, I'm sure.
He wasn't picked in the last squad.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Oh, would you not? Oh, I'm surprised.
No.
I mean that England team would be shocking. It would be the England team would be like an average team. Like you think those players,
you know.
I mean, Charlie White's got a chance now. Charlie White's got a chance.
All season, his time's coming.
I mean, it's a joke, and I mean, just some of the players who are in these teams, like you've just got to think Sergio Ramos, Varane, like these players who are world class and play for these teams and won't be able to play at World Cups. The World Cup won't have the same eyes on it anymore. If you take them players out, because some people just watch the World Cup for the players who are in it. Pogba, like these class players with personality. No one will want to watch the World Cup because they can't play in it. It's baffling. I think it would be really unfair. But the only punishment you could really do is fines. Take the money off them. Take the Champions League money off them, and relegate them. Put them in national. Put them in the National League right now.
Yeah, to me, it negates the entire ethos of international football. Like, we have international football for the elite players of every country, but these elite players are going to be playing in these super leagues now. Hopefully, in years to come, we'll end up filtering out a system where we get to the point where they can play for other teams that aren't in the Super League and who are going to essentially become the next biggest clubs in England, which is probably going to be the likes of Leeds. Ourselves, hopefully, if we can get ourselves back up there, hopefully these players are going to move to these teams. But if they don't, then they aren't allowed to play for the international football. What's the point? The international football should be the best players from every country. So I do think it is very unfair, especially when the players have got contracts to honour. I mean, at Sunderland, we've had a lot of players who I think, in my opinion, at the very least, who've, this is called, nothing's confirmed, but who I think a lot of time have dodged playing. I'm not going to name any names in case I put my foot on it, but I think there's that. Names spring to mind. I'm sure people know who I'm referring to. Players who have, faked injuries and never really showed any interest to play and come up with excuses to not play. And they're only honouring a contract and doing the right thing by playing. So I think it's very harsh to blame the players. Anyway, lads, we've been live.
I've got one more question.
But Deano wants to extend it. Go on, Deano.
One question. Do you believe it will happen? Yes or no?
No, I think the fan power will stop it in this country. The passionate fan power.
I think I get your point, Jacob, but I don't think this is targeted towards the fans in this country, and that's the really sad thing. I think it's targeted to football and sport fans worldwide. James referred to it quite a lot. Fans tuning in from around the world who aren't necessarily Liverpool fans, Tottenham fans, or what have you, or if they are, the plastic fans because they've never been there. I think it's going to be difficult. There's a long way to go before this goes through. And something that Thogdad was saying as well on him and Thogden's reaction to it was that there's going to be a lot of lawsuits here. So there's a long way to go, Dino, but I wouldn't be surprised either way, in all honesty. But I think potentially the fans could do something. But I think the importance of this, the market for this is the fans around the world. The sport question, lads. Dean Wood, very quick question, lads. What would you do if suddenly were invited? I think we decline.
I hope we'll decline, but I'm going to say it will happen because at the end of the day, money always talks. Simple as that. It's not the fan power anymore; it's the money. They'll just give a couple of backhanders. This will happen. It's going to happen. If it wasn't going to happen, it wouldn't be mentioned. But it's the fact there's no fans in the stadium, so no one can protest and be uproar and stuff like that. So they're doing it at a correct time because we can't physically do anything because we're not in the stadiums.
Yeah, Jacob, just very quickly, I know you want to...
Yeah, well, just before we end the show, this has been in the last few minutes whilst we've been live on air. Jesper Moller from UEFA, this is a statement apparently it's been made. The breakaway Super League clubs, 4 of them who are in the Champions... 3 of them rather, who are in the Champions League semi-finals, Real Madrid, Man City and Chelsea, could be banned from the semi-finals because of what they're about to do. That's how serious it's getting.
Ban them, 100% ban them. Don't let Man City win the Champions League before the leave for the Super League. Don't let them. Simple as that. They've ruined the chance. For me, ban them.
It would be absolutely class to say, they've never even won the Champions League, which of course they haven't. And that's the entire point of why this thing is stupid. It's elected. You're a big enough club. You can compete, not you've earned the right. Anyway, lads, it's been a great show. Been chatting for well over an hour now. Thank you to everyone who's tuned in as well. I just want to mention at the end, if you have enjoyed the show, why not give us a like? We haven't really mentioned that. I didn't really want to keep mentioning. And subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We do watch alongs at every game, as well as Thursday Night Live and the Sunday Bunch and the odd little thing like this here and there. So yeah, thank you to everyone who's watching tonight. But for myself, Jack Dodds, from Deano Jacob and from Jacob Kirkbride, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you later. Take care. Bye-bye.